Hello there and welcome to Canned Sanity. Today we're going to be talking about growing carrots. I'm standing beside the bed that I planted my carrots in, and I thought I'd start this video by showing you the stages of the growth of carrots in my garden so far. So let's get started. Okay, so first of all I just want to talk about the soil I started with. These are fairly new beds. I've built this garden within the last year. And I started by using just some topsoil that was given to me. I mixed it with some rock dust and some well-rotted cow manure. The cow manure was about 3 years rotted. And I mixed everything up, and then I made the beds. Now, carrots generally like loose soil, and so if you do have some stones in your soil, you might end up with some malformed carrots. I wasn't too concerned about it when I was building the beds because I was building all the beds the same. And as I work on the garden year after year, I will amend these beds with some sand and loosen up the soil. Now, loose soil is the best for growing carrots. If you don't have loose soil, then the carrots will grow slower, and if they come across any resistance in the soil, they will end up a little bit malformed. Now, I wasn't too concerned about that for this bed because, like I said, I was just building this bed with the best base to start, and as I work on these gardens over the years, I will add sand to the beds that I'm going to use for growing carrots. So adding rock dust to your garden adds some really good minerals and nutrients. So it's a really good idea to add it to your bed, and so that's why I started with all my beds adding some rock dust. And like I said, as I work on these beds over the years, I will add different amendments depending on the type of vegetables that I grow in them. Okay, so one other thing to note about carrots is that they are best started when the weather is cool. So I generally start my carrots sometime in April. If I have a cold frame, I can even start them earlier, and I'll start them in March because I can close up the lid and keep that soil fairly warm. And but in this bed, I started these carrots about April 15th. Now, carrots take 3 to 4 months to reach maturity. So if you're in a real cool climate, or in the cooler part of, say, northern Ontario, you want to get your carrots in as soon as possible because it does take those 3 to 4 months to grow. Now, I live in southern Ontario, and so I can do consecutive planting, start in March or April, and plant right up until about the middle of June, which is what it is today. It's June 11th. And this will be my last planting of carrots for the spring-summer. And then I'll pick up with planting my carrots in about the end of August for fall carrots. Now, carrots are biennials, and they can stay in the ground for the whole winter, and the roots will die off, or sorry, not the roots, the tops will die off, but the roots will continue to grow. So you can leave your carrots in the ground and continue to grow them in the winter. If you are in a cooler climate or a colder climate, you want to cover it up with about 3 inches of good mulch, some straw or some really good mulch, and just to protect them a bit. But I've grown carrots all the way through to the spring and pulled them up in the spring, and they're just delicious. And once the spring comes, though, you do want to pull them up because you don't want to leave them in past the spring because they'll flower, and really through the winter is probably the length of time that you should only keep your carrots in and pull them up in the spring. So now we're going to get on to talking about thinning your carrots. Okay, so I've just pulled the carrot tops aside just so you can see I have some good spacing in here. I have a couple inches in between some carrots. But there is still some that are growing close together. So I'll just get in there with my little scissors here and pull them away and take that out and just put that to the side. Now you can use these carrot tops in, if you want to save them, you can use them and put them in pesto, or just put them in your salad. They're edible, so if you want to save what you take out, do that, because there's lots of nutrition in those carrot tops. So just so you can see, I'm just going to pull this one over like this, and you can see that there's a good spacing in there. Now I have one that's growing right here. I don't need to use the scissors because it's not so close. I can just pull it up because it's not going to disturb the other carrot in there. And so I'll just kind of go around every couple of days and see if there's some really thin ones, then I can pull those up. The ones that are growing right beside another that I missed in my first thinning, I'll get in there with my little scissors here. And you can pick these up anywhere and just snip those out. And so as you can see, I have about, 2 inches between the carrots. And for me, that's fine. If you give them more space, you might get bigger carrots, but that's good enough for me. I'll get in here and I'll want to get and pick these as soon as I can, as soon as I see that they're a good size. And like I said, it takes 3 to 4 months for the carrots to reach maturity. And I'm just going to pick one of the bigger ones, just so you can see that these were in around April 15th. I'm going to see, like this one here, you see this is not that big, but there's a good top, and I want to thin this one because this one's a little bit close to the other one. Let's just pull it at the base just to see what it looks like. You can see that root is starting, and it's now June 11th, so 2 months. Another month and I'll be able to pick these carrots, month and a half probably. And now some people think, well, if you pick those carrots small, they'll be nice, they'll be really tasty. But actually, if you are growing like a regular carrot, you want to make sure that you leave that carrot in the ground for the duration that the seed pack says, because then you'll get the maximum amount of sweetness for that carrot. If you pick them early, the carrot might not have this much flavor. If you want small carrots, then pick a carrot seed that actually recommends picking them small. They are actually grown for small carrots. Then you'll get the maximum sweetness for that carrot. So anyways, now we'll move on to my next bed, so you'll see the stage that bed is at. Okay, in this bed I planted some deep purple carrots, and over on this side I planted again some Nantes coreless carrots. And Nantes are my favorite carrot. I like that they're coreless. They're really sweet. They're fairly easy to grow, and so that's my favorite carrot to grow. Now you can see it didn't come in as thick as my previous bed, and that's okay. That means that there's less work for me to get in there to thin the bed. I actually haven't thinned this bed not even once yet, and so you want to get in there and make sure that you get out any weeds, because carrots do not like weeds, and they will just compete with the nutrients for the carrots. So you want to make sure that you pull those out, and then use your little tool when your carrots are growing right close together, so that you don't disturb the root of any carrot that you want to keep. So over here I have some carrots growing quite closely, so just so that I don't disturb the root, I'll just snip them out like that. Now, when I grow 2 different varieties, I leave a space in between, and I'll plant in this space. I'll plant a companion plant along here. I might plant some radishes, or I might plant some beets. What I planted earlier was some leeks that I had started from seed in March, and I planted these in May, and as you can see, they're coming along really nicely, and they're a really good companion plant for carrots. So if you're looking for something to plant in that early spring, then I'd suggest planting some leeks with your carrots. Carrots also like growing with tomatoes, so if you have a lot of space in front of your tomatoes on the south side of them, I would plant your carrots in the front of your tomato bed as well. And so now you might notice that there is some rocks here on top. That's not ideal for the best shape of your carrots, but like I said earlier in the video, I use rock dust to get my base of my bed started, and in time, turning this bed over year after year, these rocks will settle to the bottom of the bed. So in the next part of the video, I'm going to plant my last planting of carrots for the spring summer, and I'll show you how I will amend that bed with a little bit of sand before I plant my carrots. And I had planted carrot. I have a video on cansanity.com showing you how to plant carrots using seed tape or using a pelleted seed. And today we're going to use a method called meadow seeding, and I'll show you how to plant carrots that way. Okay, so now we'll get to the good stuff. We're going to plant some carrots. And I just want to reiterate that I built these beds multi-purpose last year. And what I mean by that is I just made the beds all the same using rock dust and some well-rotted cow manure and topsoil, and mixed that all up. And then this year I added topped the beds with some triple mix, and you can get that from any landscape supply store or a place like Lowe's or Canadian Tire. You can buy it by the bag. I have a large garden here, so I just had 10 yards delivered, and so you can add that to your beds. Now, carrots don't need a lot of, they don't need a rich soil. They can grow well in poor soil. In fact, adding sand doesn't add any nutrients to your soil, but it makes it nice and loose, and carrots do really well with that. So what I'm going to do in this bed is I'm going to add some sand before I plant, just to loosen it up a little bit more. Now, for those of you who are new to gardening, and you might be wondering, well, where do I get sand? What kind of sand do I buy? I thought I'd go over a little bit of what you might find out there. So what I like to use is an all-purpose sand, and you can pick that up at a nursery or at, again, a place like Canadian Tire or Lowe's or Walmart probably even. And it's just a really nice fine sand with not a lot of big chips in it. Now, if you can't find that, you can use bedding sand as well, but that's not as fine, and it'll have a little bit larger stones in it. But the carrots should do okay with that. What I wouldn't recommend that you do is use playground sand. And the reason why I wouldn't use that is it's been sterilized so that it's more suitable for sandboxes. So that I would leave, unless you had some sandbox sand that your kids had used for years and years and years, and you weren't using it anymore, then sure, throw it into your garden. But if you're out there looking specifically for the kind that you would add to a garden, I would get the all-purpose sand or bedding sand. Okay, so this is the all-purpose sand. It's wet, so it's not as easy to see how fine it is, but there's not hardly any chips of rock in there. And this is the bedding sand, and there are definitely chips of stone in there, just small chips, but either one will work. So I'm just going to mix this around the bed that I'm going to be planting in, and I'm going to add just a little bit more here. You don't need to really work this in too much because it'll settle into the soil. as you grow things in it. But I'm going to just mix that up like that. And then I'm going to just take my trowel and just kind of just mix it up like that. Or use your big shovel and mix it up. You don't have to go too deep. Just, 4 to 6 inches. Okay, more effectively would be just to use a rake and just rake the sand in like that. So that's what I've done. I bought an 18 kilogram bag of sand and I added most of that to this little bed here. So now I'll just now that's nice and loose, which is what carrots want. I'm just going to rake this lightly, not pressing too hard here, and then we're ready to plant. Okay, the first thing you want to do is water your bed. Carrots need to be sown about 1/4 inch deep, and I'm planting, this is June 12th today, and I know that it's going to get hot, and so key to good germination is keeping that seed evenly moist. And so to give it the best chance of success, water the soil thoroughly first. So that's what I'm going to do. This is a 2-gallon pail. This is about 3 feet by 3 feet, give or take. Okay, for interest, I like to plant different carrots as I'm planting throughout the season. So I haven't planted any rainbow blend seeds yet, so I'm going to plant those. And then I have this one that I haven't planted before called baby finger. And it just grows, it's just one of the smaller carrots, and it matures quicker. This one matures in 62 days. And whereas the Nantes were 70, 75. And the rainbow blend here says that it will mature in, this one is actually 60 days. So these are good to get in the ground now. Again, because it is getting to be that warmer time of the year, I'm going to have to be very careful to keep this bed wet while they're germinating, and then while the seedlings are small. And so my other plant carrots that are up there, they're good. They're growing for more than a month, and so I can ease off on the watering a bit and only water them once a week if it's pretty consistent weather. But these new seedlings and the seeds I'll want to keep it wet. Anyway, so in a previous video I talked about planting. If you're new to gardening, use seed tape because it's really easy. You just lay the seed tape down, cover it lightly over with soil, and you have good spacing for your carrots. The other way to get good spacing is to use a pelleted seed, and that way you can see the seeds. They're much bigger to put in the ground, and so you can space them really well. This method is just another easy method, and it's called meadow seeding. And so what you do is you just scrape the ground. And so I'm just going to scrape the ground. I'm going to do 2 different plantings. So I'm going to scrape and scrape. And I'm going to leave a path in between where I'm going to plant, where I will plant something that is a companion plant to carrots. Like I'll put a row of onions in here, or a row of radishes. And then you'll get some interest to your garden, and you get that nice beneficial planting by putting companion plants together. So I'll leave a little bit of space, and then I'll rake again here. And this is how I seeded all of these beds that I've shown you in this video. So you only need to go down like about a 3/4 of an inch, and then you just sprinkle the seeds in those ridges, or in those little trenches. Now, when you do this meadow seeding, you end up having to thin a little more than if you are more careful about how many seeds you put down. But what's nice is that the planting doesn't take very long to do, and I find that at this time of the year in particular, the success rate of germinating and getting my carrots started is a little trickier because of the extreme weather that you'll get. So I like this method at this time of the year. So I'll just drop the seeds in there and not worry too much about spacing, because I'm going to thin those when they come up. And so you might end up having more clumps of carrots together, but as you can see from the earlier part of this video, it actually works out really well, and it looks really good when they come up. So now carrots, seeds don't need to go, they don't need to be covered with a lot of dirt, so don't worry if you get some seeds on, not in your, say, your trenches, but on top. And so I'm just going to go ahead and finish all of this, and then we'll pick up the video. Okay, so I've sprinkled all my seeds in my two beds, and it's overseeded, so there's going to be a ton that come up, and I will have to weed. And you start weeding or start thinning when they're about 2 inches, an inch, 2 inches, when you can get in there and snip them out. And it's really obvious where one carrot starts and another one ends. When they get bigger, it's harder. You know, you'll look at it and you'll think, is that one carrot? And so you want to start thinning when they're about, you know, 1 to 2 inches tall, and be very careful not to disturb the roots. So now what I like to do is just use the sand over top, and my sand is wet, which is good. I'm not going to have to wet these seeds again, so then just sprinkle that, and you're only doing a quarter inch. Now if this was dry, this would be easier to do, because, you know, sprinkling the sand would just fall out of my hands. So it's a little bit tedious because it's wet, but the bonus with it being wet is that I won't have to water it, because everything's wet. The base is wet, the top is wet. And when you put the seeds in like this without the seeds being pelleted or on a seed tape, they're really susceptible to washing away when you water. So use just a light spray of water over top of your seeds when you plant your seeds this way. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish dropping the sand over top of the seeds. Okay, because it's wet, there's clumps in here, and you just want to just lightly go over top and just kind of spread it out. You really only want to have just a quarter inch of soil over top of those seeds. So the sand will settle in much nicer than if you were to use the triple mix on top. But you could do that too. I just happen to have more sand still, so I'm trying to loosen these beds up, and so adding sand will just benefit the garden for next year as well. So I'm just going to just mix that in like that. And, you know, be careful not to disturb the seeds that you've put in the ground. So I'm just going over top just to spread that sand about, just so that it's just a fine amount of sand over top of the seeds, quarter inch. And this is damp, but you could, and I think I'm going to just put a sprinkling of water over top because that'll help settle the sand even more. What you don't want is you don't want a crust forming over top of your seeds before they germinate, because then it'll be hard for the little seedlings to push through. So that's why you want to keep that evenly moist for the germination period, and then once the plants are just a little seedlings. So I'm just going to finish doing that and then give it a little bit of sprinkling of water. I'm just going to sprinkle on some water just to compact that a little bit. Now these seeds will probably clump together a little bit, and that's okay, I'll just thin them. Okay, so the carrots are planted, and now I won't plant more carrot seeds until August sometime. I'll look to see what the weather's like. If it's going to be a hot month, or it looks like it's going to be a hot month, I'll wait until the middle of August to the end of August. If it's looking like a cool summer, then I might try to plant some more carrot seeds at the beginning of August. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you are enjoying the CanSanity videos, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and don't forget to check out all the great recipes at cansanity.com.